This time, I'm going to do the recording right from the start. The recording that is posted for you is one I did for last Tuesday. It's what I did a semester ago. It's the same stuff, same stuff. So if you want to see it, fine. I wouldn't want to sit through it again. Once is enough usually. But some people, hey, they're video addicts. And they'll look at anything that's on the screen. Okay. So I'm going to record this one. What happens is it gets sent to me after we're finished. It takes them about an hour to 2 or 3 hours at the most to send it back to me. And then I process it for YouTube. Okay. Canvas also keeps a copy, but I prefer to put it on YouTube. Okay. It doesn't take up any space for us. And then I'll post it for you later in the evening, and usually tell you that I have done that. Much easier if I have all of your preferred email addresses again. Okay, let's go ahead. I may have to address something here. Let's get on here first. Okay, I got a note at the top of the screen I've never seen before. The live transcription, closed captioning is enabled. Who can see it? Well, maybe I have to. No, that's just information. I'm tired of information. Overload. Okay, first off, on our start page, if you're counting, you'll notice there's still only 2 announcements. There usually is the maximum, I think, is 3 anyway, and the oldest one, which is start of class here at the bottom, will scroll off of the screen. Well, you can always find the announcements under announcements. Take a quick look at the top one, and if it's different, well, then you should read it. But announcements, if it's important, I'm going to email you all, and you can read it ahead of class. Okay, it'll go here too. Okay, week 1 assignment. This was a question somebody, Emily asked me. Open it up, and in week 1, we're going to be looking at the bones and talking about their development. You have an assignment objective here, or something to do. Submit an original outline for each of chapters 1 and 6. I'm going to go through chapters 1 and 6 with you in just about 2 minutes. But you need to submit an outline. Now, what's an outline? If you were taking notes in a class, I mean, God, how many classes have all of us taken? You sit there and you take notes. You can't possibly keep up word for word. That's why we use recorders, I suppose. But if you're doing a printed outline, you paraphrase. You put down the most important things. And that's what I want out of this chapter 1 and chapter 6, an outline of the most important things, at least that you consider. I'm going to show you what I consider the most important things in just a moment. How do you submit it? Please. Some of you have a pad and pencil I asked you to bring. You see this inbox over here? Don't ever use it. Don't ever use the inbox. Oh, what a mess. It comes to my email, then I have to go out of my email, come back to this, open up this, and hope that I can even access it. Please, If to submit something, if you're typing it up, keyboarding it, just make it an attachment and email it to me. If you don't have the ability, uh, that ability, you can write it by hand. I actually prefer handwritten ones. The keyboarded types of outlines quite often include too much material that has just been cut and pasted from other articles, and that's not what we want. We want your original outline, it says. Okay, but you can write it by hand. You can scan it. If you can scan it, make a PDF or other type of document out of it, you can attach that to an email. If you can't do that, then you can take a photograph of the pages. There won't be a lot of pages. The idea of the outline is to chop it down to the most important material. So you can take a photograph with your phone, and then you can send it to me. I'll give you my phone. Well, I don't know if I want to give everybody my phone number so you can text message, but you can email it to me uh, from your phone or from your computer. Uh, email an attached image. Okay. Now, when is this due? Chapters 1 and 6. They are all due by the day of practical 1. Okay, we're going to go back and take another look at that. I'm going to go down here to, I've skipped to the bottom. You can't see it yet. Now it's on Charlie's webpage. Okay. When you open up these URLs, they're directed off of Canvas. Canvas doesn't want you to do that, but you're going to have to click another time. There it is. You can enlarge it. Okay. Here's the reading assignments. You don't have to look here to get your reading assignments. You don't have to use this page, but you're going to be foolish not to later on. This has got lots of information on it. Okay. When we get into the classroom, we'll be exclusively using this page. But I want to show you that the reading assignments, sorry about the Venetian blind look here, that's where future things are going. You're going to have chapter 1 for our class, spring. That's the introduction. Chapter 6, ossification. Chapter 9 is coming up. You can see ahead of time the joints. And chapter 2 is coming up. I don't really care when they were signed. I did when I made this chart, but I don't now, so not applicable. When are they due? They are due by P1. Okay. P1 is the date of practicum exam 1. Okay. You can accumulate them all and send them all in at the end, but it's got to be before practicum 1. Practicum 1 is on the it's going to be the 9th or 10th, 10th of February. Okay. So they got to be in by the 10th of February. The best way to do this is not to procrastinate and do them all at the end. That's horrible. That's horrible. Just as you go along, try to keep up, keep pace, and do these. They don't really take as long as you may think. Oh yeah, a couple of chapters. A couple of chapters are long chapters, and they will take longer. But most of the chapters are pretty straightforward, especially after I review them with you. Okay, so these are all due before the first practicum. And then there's going to be a group It'll all be due before the second practicum and the third and the fourth practicum. Okay. So you can always come to this page to see. You can always email me to ask. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm like everybody else. I hate getting the same question again and again, but I won't tell you that. Okay. Uh, I try to be polite. Oh, there have been times. There have been times when I have not been polite. That's for sure, but not with students. Okay. Now I'm going to back out of this unless somebody has a question.
I got a question, Charlie.
Great.
So for the outlines, do you want us to turn them in individually as soon as we're done, or do you want to turn it in all together?
It doesn't matter. Okay. If you turn them in individually, uh, especially your first ones, I'm going to open them up, take a quick look, and get back to you if I need to. Why would I need to get back to you? Because the outline's too short or the outline is too long. It doesn't condense anything. You're not helping yourself. When I said the other day, I meant it. You're really making what is a cheat sheet. If you could take this with you to a test, you would have a condensed version of the chapters. Also, you're making it possible not to have to reread the chapter when you're studying for the lecture test. Okay, so to answer your question, you can turn them in singly, set of two, another set of two to get to four, or all four at once. Okay. One thing not to do: don't try to send to my college address a large packet. The college has a limit of what size file it'll accept. They're afraid of getting viruses and such. So if I think you go over 24 megabyte file, they'll just kick it out, and I'll never know, and you may never know, and then I'll have to ask. We'll get it settled, but keep the file size within reason, less than 20. Okay, and then we'll be fine. Now, if you want to send it to my home address, it's not on this page. This is my official page. Okay, I've given you my home address in the syllabus. Okay, and when you've received anything from me, I'm sitting here in the den here, and I'm writing from my home address. I don't. I like to use the school uh, uh, program as much. Double authentication to get into it and find out where you were. Got all these notices about new jobs being offered and stuff. I don't need all that. Okay, I just send it to you. So you do have my home address. My home address will accept any file that you could send. Okay. Okay, where do I back out here? Right there. Here again. Okay. I'm going to leave Charlie's webpage since that's where you've seen it. At the bottom of week 1. As we go through, I may move it down to wherever we are, or I may duplicate it. Okay. I want to go over chapters 1 and 6 with you. Those are the first outlines that'll be due. Not due yet. Books on the floor here. Okay, this is where you find out why you need a book. If you don't have a book today, you're going to have to scribble some notes for yourself so that when you do get the book, you'll know what he said. You can also hook up with one of the other students, okay, and they can possibly photograph the pages of the chapter for you and send it to. Don't make that a forever thing, because that's really asking a lot of somebody. Okay. Hey, did anybody get that book last night? The $20 book? Nobody was interested in a $20 book? I can't believe it. You must already have your books then. Okay. You did get my email, didn't you, about it?
Yeah, I got it.
No, that's all I want to know. Got to know that we are still together. Okay. Now, you don't see me looking at my book because I've got you on the screen here. But I want you, if you have a book, to turn to chapter 1. And here it is. Okay. Now, it so happens that the text of my chapter 1 in edition 7 starts on page 2. That may not be the case with the edition that you're having. Just go to the start. Unless you treasure this book so much and you're going to sell it later on, I would mark it up. Book's not sacred to me. The information in it is. Okay. So here's what I would consider that you should have in your outline of chapter 1. Just an abbreviated portion of the overview. Now, where am I getting this word overview? For those who may not have the book, an overview of anatomy. It's the first thing it says. Okay. And it's got some bold words in there, 3 of them that I can see, and they should be written down and defined. Subdisciplines, you want gross anatomy. Now, if I were you and just taking notes, I'd just put a big X or something, or a star, like gross anatomy, if I'm willing to mark up the book. Of course I am. Regional anatomy, systemic anatomy, and what is surface anatomy. There's a next section called microscopic anatomy, and I don't want you to bother outlining that. We're going to spend so much time on histology at the end of the course that it's just a waste of our time to beat this down. Okay, so no for that short paragraph. Other branches of anatomy? No. Why no? Because we're not here to learn the other branches of anatomy. We're here to learn gross anatomy. The hierarchy of structural organization. Yes. Figure 1-1. I don't have to give you the page number here because I seem to keep the figures in order. Figure 1-1 shows the hierarchy from the chemical level, cellular level. The pictures, don't duplicate any pictures. Don't do any artwork for me. And if you really want to do artwork, do it for you, and that's fine. Okay. You want this figure 1-1, and what you want in my book is, I believe, orange. You're going to find out I don't see colors very well at all. Maybe that's green. I don't know. Chemical, cellular, tissue, organ system, and organism. Okay, that goes along with the text that we started. Hierarchy of structural forms. I'm turning the page, and do you see 12 dark images with organ systems in them?
Yes.
Okay, good. You might want to look at it, but don't outline this. Don't outline it. These 12 systems of the body, we're going to go over in detail one at a time. No need of looking at a preview here, okay? Please don't write anything about this. Don't list them, but continue with the text underneath them that talks about the tissue level, the organ system that we talked about just a moment ago with the figure 1-1. And now I'm on the next page. You'll stop that when you get to scale, length, volume, and weight. No, do not outline scale for length, volume, and weight. Very important things. And when they're necessary, we definitely will not be skipping anything there. But right now, no, don't do that paragraph. Anatomical terminology, yes, it's only one paragraph long. My version of the book now has a check your understanding. It has some questions, and I guess the answers are at the back of the book. You could treat that as a practice quiz for yourself, not to be turned in to me, however. Okay? Or you can skip it altogether. Definitely, I don't want it as part of your outline. Okay, under gross anatomy and introduction, it says, move right down to the first topic, regional and directional terms. This is worthy of 3 stars at least. We've got to begin using these terms right away. So that the bold-faced terms that you find here, figure 1-3, skip it. Figure 1-3, why would they plop that in on the first page of the first chapter? Okay, it's got things that we know already. It's got things that we'll never know. Okay, it's just not valuable. Okay, you're always welcome to look at it and disagree too. Planes, body planes and sections. Yes, yes. We did this on Tuesday, the frontal section, sagittal section, and the transverse section. On the next page, for me anyway, maybe it's not your next page, table 1-1, a definite 4-star. Okay. These are the terms we talked about: superior, inferior, medial, lateral, proximal, distal, anterior, posterior, and we did not do ipsilateral, contralateral, and I don't care about those two. I don't care about ipsilateral, so you can say no, contralateral, or you can sneak them into your outline anyway. Okay. Then 2 more that I didn't talk to you about yesterday: superficial and deep, very important. Superficial is when something is on top of something else. For instance, your sternum, your breastbone, is superficial to your heart. Your heart is deep to the sternum. Okay. The brain is deep to the bones of the skull. The figure, CAT scan in table 1-1 is unnecessary. Okay. In figure 1-4, some of the books have a man, some have a woman. It doesn't make any difference. The person is sectioned in 3 different planes. Okay, like the lecture on Tuesday, and that's important. You can say it in words. You may have already said it in words from the previous pages. The MRIs down at the bottom of the page, no. Continue to read till you get to the human body plan. And now, mentally or physically with a pen, put a line above the human body plan, above the words, and write stop. That's the end of your outlining obligation for this chapter. There's more to the chapter. There's more to the chapter. Sometimes it becomes a reference work, okay? But I don't want it. I especially don't want 2 pages further in. The quadrants of the abdomen or the ninths of the abdomen, unless you're going to become a surgeon, you're never going to use that, okay? But if you are going to become a surgeon, you may want to take a look at it anyway. And out of curiosity, since we're all here, we're all interested in the makeup of the body, yeah, anybody can look at it. But no more outlining for the rest of the chapter. Okay. Now we'll go to chapter 6. Okay. 5, chapter summary. I'm glad I don't think you can see me because I got the screen up there.
We can see you.
You can? You can see all the trouble I'm having getting these pages apart. I thought I was had privacy here. Yeah, that's what a lot of my classes are like. I'm looking at you, not you personally, but I'm looking at a bunch of black screens with names on it. That's it. That's why I can't stand that. Okay, if you can see me, I want to see you. Okay, when it's time. I actually can see you if I want to take the time to scroll through all of the pictures on the sidebar here. But you know what I usually do is I just turn them off. Okay, while we're doing this. Okay. You know, when we get into the new building, and I'm just trying to be positive here, instructors, I didn't make these rules, and I don't say I keep these rules exactly. Instructors can take a sip of water, and you can't. Why not? If I can, why can't you? Oh, don't worry, you won't be thirsty. I'll see to that. Okay. Chapter 6 is the bone and the skeletal tissues, and it starts with cartilages. Okay. There's a nice skeleton here, and it shows the locations of cartilages. They're in a baby blue color, I believe. I usually get that color correct. Okay. Location and basic structure. Please, yes. I have numbers 1 through 9. You may have 10, 8, you may have another book. Okay. But the location and basic structure. The word perichondrium is in bold. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment myself. But yes, know that, please. The other types of cartilages, yes. Chondrocyte, lacuna, those got to be included. And then hyaline cartilage, the most important cartilage that we have in the body, or at least the one that occupies the greatest amount of volume. We need to know what hyaline cartilage is. Use the diagrams, the images. Do not duplicate them. Do not redraw them by hand or electronically. I don't want those. I want you to look at them for now. Okay. Top one is hyaline cartilage, then elastic and fibrocartilage. Continuing with the text, I turn the page and I get an intermission, the marvelous properties of cartilage. I'm not going to read that. You know why I'm not going to read that? Charlie don't like to read. I don't like to read at all. I'll tell you more about that later. There's only two things that I like to read: textbooks and instruction manuals. I've never read a novel in my life, not even in school when I had to get up and talk about a book in front of the whole class. I went and got Cliff Notes, or I asked somebody else. Okay. Elastic cartilage. Can you find that? It's underneath that story. Fibrocartilage, yes. The growth of cartilage, no. Bones, the functions of bones, yes, yes, yes. Bone tissue, yes. Cells, yes. So you got some reading here. Then I've got to check your understanding. No, no, never. The gross anatomy of bones and their classification. You need to know the four basic classifications of bones: long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. Also compact and spongy bone. Structure of a typical long bone. We'll be talking about that today. You know, you're not just going to be left with a whole bunch of reading that we never talked about. Okay. I've turned the page and it says blood vessels. No. Medullary cavity, yes. Membranes, no. What you'll need there, I will be sure to give you. Structure of short, irregular, and flat bones. Let me look ahead. Okay. Bone design and stress, no. Continue with a no through check your understanding. And then when you get to microscopic structure of bones, this time, yes. Bone markings is table 6.1. No for your outline, NO. They're all very important. You're going to get asked all of them. But we'll do that in lab, and we'll do it as we have a bone in order coming up next. Continue the reading and look at and try to summarize. Don't redraw it. Figure 6.7. We'll finish the reading after spongy bone. So continue on, find spongy bone, one paragraph, and then a line, and that's your stop. Bone development and growth is very interesting, very difficult for the first or second day of a class. We will get to that. Okay. Bone remodeling, we'll get to that. Your bone is, people think bones are dead. Well, if they're dead, how do they heal? How do they mend when they're broken? And of course they do. So bones aren't dead. They have a circulatory system going through them, and they get nourished all the time. Your bone is constantly wearing away, however, and new bone is constantly being made. In the course of approximately 11 years, all of the bones in your body right now will be gone and replaced identically. Okay. But all the osseous tissue that you have in your body right now, in about 11 years, it's estimated anyway, will be gone. See? A femur lasts about 5 years, and new bone takes its place. So it's constantly renewing. Okay, questions about the outline?
Do you have an example of the outline you can show us?
Yes, I do have outlines. Let's see, I won't have it in this one. I'll send to everybody a copy of an outline.
Thank you.
Okay, what I'll probably do is send a terrible outline. Okay, and a good one. Now, I will accept your first two outlines, 1 and 6, in any condition you wish me to look at. I will get back to you and tell you it needs this, it needs that, or it's fine. Usually they're fine, just right off the bat. But I'll accept and mark it complete, 1 and 6, no matter if I do have to make some comments and ask you to do it differently the next time. I'm not going to ask you to do it over. Okay, so don't be concerned that much about 1 and 6. They're not difficult chapters anyway. Okay. Now, see, I should have a notepad too. I usually do. But if I make you a promise, okay, and I don't keep it right away, email me. Don't be afraid to tell me, hey, you said you were going to send us an example of an outline. Where am I going to get this example anyway? Go back to a class or two and all the outlines that I've collected. Okay, lots of outlines. Okay. When I do show you figures, I will probably have to ask you, what color is this? Most of the ones I've asked before, and now I've memorized what the color is, but I don't see color very well. I see some colors, and others I just slaughter them. I don't know for beans what they are. People, red, green, especially. Of course, that's common for males to have red, green color blindness, but I have that badly. I'm the guy whose car at night is stopped under a flashing orange light, not realizing it's a caution light, thinking it might be a stoplight. You know, this would be out someplace like a Joshua tree, and they have some gung ho traffic cop or something. So you have to wonder about that. My grandfather was a house painter in England. Ran out of paint, got some more. They had put the wrong color paint into a labeled can. He painted the second half of the house a different color than the first. We just don't see color very well in our family. But it helped me once. How many of you here? I like to look at you for a second. How many of you ever went to Catholic school? Any?
I did.
Okay. Enjoyable?
Oh, it was tough, like I feel like we're trapped for 4 years.
Okay. My mother took me by the hand in San Francisco and led me to some church, Catholic church, and two nuns she had waiting. And these nuns, I swear to you, they look like the Flying Nun. If you know that old program. I mean, they had the full-on habit and everything. This was back in the 50s. And I didn't want to go. What are you making me go here? She finally won one argument with my father. My mother was Catholic, my father was Baptist. But he wasn't a good Baptist or a good father either. Another story. She dropped me off with the nuns. I was scared. They dragged me inside, literally. And within 10 minutes, they had taught me how to hold my hand out so they could slap it with a ruler. And they found that spot on the head between the sensory and motor area where they can take a pencil and tap it, and you can almost fall over. I mean, there is that spot there. They know where it is. Everybody was getting slapped. Nobody was getting a compliment or anything like that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But that was then. Hey, now of course everything's hunky dory, you know. So they took me back out at the end of the day. My mother came, and we didn't have a car, but she was walking me so I'd learn the route. And I said, I don't want to come back. And the nuns sort of bristled up. My mother said, you are coming back tomorrow. And the nuns were so relieved, happy, good, another victim. So I was dragged back the next day, despite all my protests. They took me in. And at the end of the second day, they brought me back out to my mother and said, he can't come back. He can't ever come back. Well, my colorblindness had got me out of this. What happened was we had to do a coloring book project that day. We had to color a picture. The picture I had to color was a picture of Jesus. And I picked the wrong color. I was supposed to pick the flesh color out of the crayon box, and instead I picked brown. And they just had a fit. They just had a fit. Sent me out into the hallway to wait for my mother. And that was it. 2 days of Catholic school. Done. Okay, I was trying to purposely take up about 5 minutes here because I don't have time to start a project topic and not give you a break. So let me give you I gave you a little too long yesterday, actually. Let me give you a 10-minute break, okay? And I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm looking at coming back at 3:06 or 7. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, short break today. Okay, let's check that we can each hear each other. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I can hear
Yes.
you. That's great.
Yes.
I got it. Okay. Uh, I saw a message in chat. You probably did too, since it was apparently directed to everyone about not having good Wi-Fi. That's got to be fixed. Got to get good Wi-Fi if we are ending up taking any tests on Canvas. I'm not saying we're going to take any tests on Canvas, but we got to prepare for the eventualities. And besides, who wouldn't want good Wi-Fi? If you're paying for it, call the company up and have them set it straight. If it's Cox, it probably is. They should get out there and fix it. Uh, cut down on any other Wi-Fi use that goes on while we're in class. If you're having trouble, if somebody's using a game or something like that, that'll make a mess of it. Try to sit closer to the router. That'll work. You can run the speed test. Just put speed test in a Google box. It'll come up with several. They're all free. Just click on it. And if you approach 100, you're fine. I have basic cable with Cox, and it approaches 150. Uh, that's fine. It's now if I were a gamer, uh, which I used to be, uh, I would want faster than that. Much faster. Okay, so definitely need to if you were in an online class taking a practicum with a lot of images, you just wouldn't be able to function. Okay. Okay. On quizzes that we may take, again, online or digitally, do not try to do it with a phone, with a cell phone. If you have to, don't, because you don't have a tablet, don't have a laptop, don't have a computer, borrow one, go someplace where you can use one, even if it's a library. Uh, that's just the name of the game, unfortunately, here. Okay. So, let's see, what else was I going to say something, but now I forgot. Okay. Anybody come up with a question though, other than that? Okay. Okay, we're back to the screen once again. And so that was week assignment 1. During the break, I took a look at a collection of outlines that I've got from previous students. So plenty of them. I'll get one off to you pretty soon. I haven't looked at this since yesterday. A lot of people have answered the meet and greet discussion. The rest of you, please add your 2 cents worth, please, in there. Okay, I do look at them. So doesn't mean you have to watch your words because of me looking at them. I usually look at them because the topic sometimes needs clarification or somebody's got misinformation and I need to correct it. Okay. We're down here. Ossification. Yeah. Oh, I did add this for you. Bones and figure location. I wrote you about this last night. This wasn't here. I'm calling it a guide. I'm not calling it necessarily lab or lecture. What is it? Okay, this is for the skull. We've done half of the skull. We're going to do the other half in just a moment. We started with sutures. We named the sagittal, coronal, lambdoidal, and squamosal suture. And across from it is a figure. If you're using Merriam's book, any one of the editions, figure 7-4 is the one you want to go to see this. Okay. The parietal bone is also a 7-4, a lot of them there. Then 7-5, 4. You actually are not seeing a hell of a lot of figures here because the each figure can pack in quite a few bones or bone-like structures. So it goes on down. Okay. So that's where you would be directed if you wanted to see a picture other than what I have on the internet for you. Okay, for 120 today, lecture ossification. They always take a little longer to load up when it's the first time. After that, it'll be fast. Okay. Ossification is simply said the formation of bone, and it's the formation of bone from cartilage. Cartilage first and then bone. We have different types of bones, as you know. Long bones, that would be like your femur or thigh. Short bones, that would be like bones of your fingers. We also have irregular bones. Some of the wrist bones are considered irregular bones. Most of the irregular bones are like the petrous portion of the temporal bone, and then the sphenoid and ethmoid, which we haven't covered yet. So, but they have irregular shapes. The fourth type of bone is a squamous bone, meaning flattened. Now, the parietal bone, the two bones at the back of your head, okay, if you were able to take them off, it'd be like coconut halves. And why would we call something like that flat? We do, okay, because it has a broad, extensive area that's smooth, thin. Okay. It's not really flat. So we're really stressing the English language here to call such bones flat bones. Any flat bone we come across, we'll identify it as such. You don't have to guess at something like that. Some examples are given here. Partially flat portion of the temporal bone, the frontal bone, that's your forehead, the maxilla. A part of the maxilla is flat. If you're thinking of underneath your eyes, that's maxilla. Into your eyes, that's maxilla. But touch with your tongue the roof of your mouth, and that's the maxilla also coming in from both sides, and it's definitely flat. The mandible is considered a flat bone, and for the most part, although some bones have different structures and different parts of them, I wouldn't call the mandible myself completely flat, but it does have flat area, your chin. Okay. The side of your mandible or jaw underneath your ear. And the clavicles or collarbones are also flat bones. Okay. Flat bones are usually formed by the first type of ossification, which is intermembranous ossification. Sometimes you see this spelled with an A and sometimes with the ER instead of RA. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference. There's only two types of ossification. You really can't get confused. Intramembranous ossification is when bone forms between two membranes. Two membranes. I'll get back to that. Here's an example from a book. I don't like it. I searched the internet for half an hour looking for a good image of intermembranous ossification. This is what I came up with. It's not the greatest, but here, back here at the parietal area and occipital area, and here at the temporal area are examples of flat bones formed by intermembranous ossification, as is the mandible. Okay. When they're finished forming, they're pocketed. They have spaces, makes them lighter. Here we have the spaces here. Bone that is pocketed like this is called spongy bone, whereas the bone that surrounds it, and a long bone anyway, is more compact, more dense, and it's called compact bone. Intermembranous ossification, formation of bone between two membranes. Here's a membrane. Here's a membrane. Think of a baggie, a sandwich bag. No sandwich bag, just a flat baggie. Okay. You can put your hand in it, and you know there's an upper and a lower membrane. Okay. So it starts off with two membranes. Then nutrients are brought inside of the membranes, inside of the bag. By the circulatory system, and that leads to the formation eventually of bone. What kind of bone? Spongy bone. This type here. It'll later be surrounded by a small amount of compact bone. Think of it this way, this type of ossification. Two membranes, two pieces of bread. Remember old Wonder Bread or Weber's bread, the cheap stuff? That's all we ever got. Put two pieces of bread on top of each other, but you got nothing, no filling. So you don't have a sandwich yet. Now, instead of opening the two membranes, the two pieces of bread, and putting on mustard, mayonnaise, oh God, mayonnaise, I'll tell you about that, or anything else, instead close the bread back together and then take a tube of jelly. They make it in tubes these days. You can insert it between the two pieces of bread and squirt in some jelly. Squirt in some peanut butter. Peanut butter and jelly is the most popular sandwich of kids that you could find. Okay, but you're forming the filling between the membranes that already exist. How many of you, well, I'm not going to be able to see your answer. Think about it. Have you ever seen a water bed? Have you ever slept on a water bed? Now I can hear you. So has anybody slept on a water bed?
No.
Okay. Anybody did? Yes. Well, don't. Well, don't. Okay. If your nightshirt or whatever uh, moves out of the way and you are able to sleep and you touch the waterbed itself because the sheet moved that you put on it, you will stick like a bandit. Oh, it is hurt. Do you know what I mean by a waterbed? Maybe my example has gotten too old. Anybody at all know what a waterbed is?
I know what it is. I just never have seen one in real life.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's sort of like a whoopee cushion, but it's empty at first. You stick a hose onto it and you fill it and you hope it doesn't burst in the middle of the night and that you're on the second floor. But since the water is going in between two membranes, then what you're doing is intermembranous, not ossification, but uh, hydrating or hydration. Okay. I just want to get it across that there are two membranes. You could get two membranes by slapping your hands together, clap your hands or whatever. And now you got to put something in between after you have closed your hands. Okay. And the bone forms in between. This usually leads to the formation of flat bone. The second type of ossification is the more common, endochondral ossification. C-H-O-N, we mentioned this the other day. Endochondral ossification is the ossification or the formation of bone inside of cartilage. You start with the cartilage model, also known and better known actually as a template. And you follow that model, and it's first like clear plastic, and then you start injecting osseous tissue inside it. I'm going to come back to the text portion of this in a moment. Okay, I'm going to skip it for right now. Okay, we're going to go from a cartilage model. You usually don't see x-rays of unborn children. They don't like to take those. Sometimes it is necessary, though, to take the x-ray for the sake of the mother. And then you'll be able to see little arms and feet stuff, but they're not strong. They're just made of cartilage like this. Now the cartilage model is surrounded by a membrane anyway. That membrane is the perichondria. That word is in the text, but it is not in this picture. Para meaning around, cartilage. The perichondrium encircles the cartilage template. Then what happens is blood arrives. Blood vessels puncture and get inside of the cartilage, deliver nutrients, and calcification or formation of bone begins. That membrane around the outside of the growing bone, notice it's a little bit bigger, the membrane on the outside now gets a new name. It's still the same membrane. It was the perichondrium. Now it's the periosteum, peri meaning around the bone. Here's the calcified area in the center. This is still cartilage. This is still cartilage. We actually have names for different areas here. The part in the center of a long bone, even a small one like this, is called the diaphysis. The diaphysis. Some people just call it the shaft, but diaphysis is the term you'll find on an exam. At each end, you have the epiphyses. Epiphyses. SIS at the end is a singular, SES is plural. We'll come back to that. The blood keeps bringing more nutrients, and the bone in the center keeps enlarging. This is the diaphysis, but since it has bone formation going on inside it, it's also functionally the primary ossification center. This is the primary ossification center. The epiphyses, not yet, but they're getting ready to start forming bone. And then the next structure over here, here's the primary ossification center in the diaphysis again. But in the epiphyses, you get a secondary ossification center. Here, here, here. This bone has 3 epiphyses. Okay, well, that's a little bit different than most, but this is a bone that is bigger and different than most. It's going to be the femur, the femur. So here's the primary and secondary ossification centers. Here it is again, primary and secondary. There's a cavity forming in the center. That's the medullary cavity. Later on in life, when you're born, this is going to be the site of formation of all of your blood cells, all of your white blood cells, quite a bit of activity. You burn up, you kill off 3 million red blood cells a second. And in order not to become anemic, you've got to make 3 million red blood cells per second. That's how much activity goes in your body day and night. And you don't feel that. Okay, let's enlarge it even more. Here's the primary ossification center in the diaphysis. It's also called the diaphysis. Compact bone is forming on either side. So when you see a dog bone or the depiction of a dog bone, or a bone that's sort of hollow that you could put a little finger in or something, or you could take a hacksaw too and cut it transversal. You see a ring of hard bone left, even if the bone is completely dry. That ring is compact bone. The spongy bone was in here, in the medullary cavity, and is so long as you're alive. It does not preserve. The compact bone on the outside does. That's what we see. Obviously, we come up, the epiphyses are still developing as the secondary ossification centers. But notice the cartilage between the primary and secondary ossification center. Cartilage up here and up here. Okay, this is a joint. This is a cartilaginous joint, and it's not movable. Okay, this is not movable. It's not flexible. Okay. And immovable or synarthrotic cartilaginous joint. Even if you have to look back at any notes you have, do you know what that's called? It's not a suture, for instance. It's not a suture because it's not fibrous. It's cartilaginous and it's immovable. This is a synchondroses. Now, when you look back at Tuesday's lecture, okay, you'll see synchondroses. I know you didn't take notes by hand, but I've got to tell you, you must, in order to get a decent grade, and by a decent grade, to me, that's an A, you've got to keep up with the material. This is not a lot of material. I'm not scolding you, by the way. Please don't take it that way. I just want to encourage you. You should know what a synchondrosis is. You should. You actually need to know what it is. Don't wait for the test to come to try to cram it in the night before. So if you can this weekend, go back and look at the material. Now, I know also some of you don't have a book yet, but I think most of you are getting it. You can always come back to this material. This will be posted up all semester long. Okay. The epiphyseal plate is the name we give this particular type of joint. Epiphyseal separates the primary ossification center from the secondary ossification center. It separates the diaphysis from the epiphysis. And now we come over to here. This is to represent a mature bone of a newborn. Okay, it's not long enough yet for an adult. There's spongy bone formed here and in the medullary cavity. Compact bone around the outside. There's some cartilage left on the joint for the hip. Here are the remnants, little tiny remnants of the epiphyseal plate. The epiphyseal plate will eventually be absorbed, and then the bone will be complete. In some bones, the epiphyseal plate may take years to disappear, and in some bones, it never disappears. By looking at bones that have been unearthed, we can look at these things and often determine how old the person was when they died. Let's go back up to what I skipped. Okay. Once the templates begin to grow, the perichondrium is then referred to as the periosteum. Okay, now you know what we're talking about there. The epiphyseal plate is an example of a synchondrosis, which is a cartilaginous, immovable joint. Backing up here, we skip this, but now maybe we understand it. The shaft of the bone is the diaphysis, which contains the primary site of ossification, primary ossification center. At the end of the bones, we have the secondary ossification center in the epiphyses. Okay. Within any one bone, it says here, you can expect to find spongy bone and compact bone. So that you would have the two different types of ossification occurring in the same bone, intermembranous and endochondral ossification can occur in the same bone. Okay. One leads to spongy bone, intermembranous, and one leads to compact bone. The compact bone is the only one, though, that has what we call the Haversian system. Haversian systems develop in compact bone. This refers to a bony pattern that's repeated innumerable times and has these parts which are listed first, but we need to jump to the drawing. This is compact bone all around here. Here's the medullary cavity. We are actually making a cut through the diaphysis or the shaft of the bone. If we were able to look in a clear picture, we see what look like little orbits, maybe little solar systems here, here. We can't physically do this, but in a diagram we can lift one of these orbits out. And this cylindrical piece of bone is called an osteon. The osteon is the main characteristic of compact bone. Okay. It's the functional unit of compact bone. In the center of each osteon is a small vein and a very small artery running in a hole down through the osteon. Here's the hole tunnel, and it's called a Haversian canal. Every osteon has an Haversian canal to bring nutrients throughout the bone all your life. They also interconnect with each other right here by Volkmann canals. Now these were named after people, obviously. Volkmann, Haver. Okay. There's a tendency going on for the last several years to eliminate people's names and use other descriptive terms. I don't know. Why they keep changing things beats me, but we'll have to be on the lookout for that if it happens. Or you'll have to watch for it in the future. Okay, so here's an osteon. An osteon is located over here too, but you can't make it out until you pull it out. You'll see in each osteon these small little orbiting structures. They're actually depressions. They're called lacuna. And what is inside of the lacuna is an osteocyte. Osteocyte is any bone cell. Okay. The osteocyte, for part of its life, can build bone, in which case it's called an osteoblast, or it can tear bone down, in which case it's called an osteoclast. That's with a C. They're not, it may have sounded the same, didn't mean that to be osteoblast, osteoclast. You'll only have to know the cell inside of the lacuna as an osteocyte. There's no way with the naked eye or microscope can look at the cell and tell what it's doing. Okay. So whether it's building or tearing down, we don't know. Not at the gross level that we're at. Okay. There are also small circles around. I'm going to wait till the next drawing to show you those. Okay. Here's the model that we would have in the laboratory. Here's the Haversian canal, and it's got inside of it an artery or arteriole, a venule, and a lymphatic, but it's in the Haversian canal. Layers of compact bone are set down. Now these layers are artificially colored on the model so that they alternate, I don't know, is this white or pink and yellow, but you can see the alternation. Okay, that's just so it's illustrated for you. Between the layers, that's where the lacuna are. The lacuna never move. They are like a small grave. The osteocyte is inside of them for all of its life. It will never be released. So lacuna with osteocyte, this is a lamella. Each one of these rings of compact bone is a lamella. Okay, and then caniculi, the smallest of vessels, interconnect the lacuna. They look like eyelashes. They look like jellyfish. The one thing that doesn't show on this model is the Volkmann canal, because we would need two osteons side by side and for them to be connected to each other. Okay, we're going to move right into the last portion here. Bones and structures of the skull. We did the first half of these Tuesday. Okay, some of these will be repeats, and repetition is the way we learn in this class. Okay, so I'm going to, this was not labeled. Well, yes, it is. It is labeled colored wise. Color. I can match up colors. I just can't name them. Okay. For instance, which of these two is green? The upper one or the bottom?
So the parietal is the green one.
Varietal.
Parietal,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's green. What color is this?
That's brown.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
I'm just
Okay.
kidding, it's purple. No, it's brown.
Okay. Now, slow me down if you need to, but you can easily come to this page yourself and match them up. But this is the frontal bone. Do the outside first. This is the parietal bone. At the back here and here is the occipital bone with the external occipital protuberance, this little point here and point here. This is the temporal bone. The upper portion of it is squamous and formed from intermembranous ossification and is called the squamous portion of the temporal bone. The lower portion is the petrous portion of the temporal bone. Coming down the side of the frontal bone, we come to the zygomatic. Here's the zygomatic arch. We have a very small nasal bone. This bone back here in the eye orbit is the lacrimal bone. Here's the maxilla. And here's the mandible that we haven't talked about yet. We haven't talked about this bone yet either. This is the ethmoid bone. It's at the top of your nasal cavity. It's got holes in it, very small pocketed holes, and it allows gases to come up to the olfactory lobes of the brain so that you can smell. Now, one in particular, they have dotted off. You can see the dots here. This has got to be yellow. Okay. And here it is on the side. It runs from left to right in the skull, straight across. This is the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is in two parts that we refer to. The top part up here is the lesser wing. Now, don't worry that I'm talking to you and I don't have any labels here. I've got them. They're coming. This is the lesser wing. It looks like a manta ray. This part, all the way across, this is the greater wing. Here's our foramen magnum again. Here's the jugular notch over here. Okay. Here's that same sphenoid bone again. Here's the lesser wing. This is looking down into the skull. And here's the greater wing. In the middle is a saddle. If you can see it, you're facing forward. I'll look up here, it's right here. This is called the sella turcica. The sella turcica protects and is the seat for the pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland secretes 8 hormones at least that we know of. Very important in your growth, and even when you're fully grown, very important. Controls many, many body functions throughout your entire life by producing hormones. Hormones act in very small amounts. And in your lifetime, your pituitary gland is apt to produce and secrete only 4 drops of fluid. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay. Now, here's a hole, and here's a hole that we can see easily when the bone is disarticulated. That means taken on its own. This is the foramen ovale, named because most of these holes are oval in shape. This is the foramen spinosum, whereas this side never formed a foramen spinosum. Okay, we're not going to trick you. You're going to get asked this side. This looks like a high heel footprint. See what I'm saying? There's the heel, there's the toe. And here's some trash it's kicking. Here and here. This is a foramen. You don't see a hole though. Foramen means hole. Foramen means a hole through a single bone. Well, there is a hole, but it goes forward. We can't see it. Foramen rotundum. Spinosum ovale rotundum. The optic canals, or where the optic nerves come from the eye would be situated here and here. The optic nerve comes back and in through a hole right here. It's called an optic canal or optic foramen. And here. Most of you know that the optic nerves cross over. The one from the right eye goes to the left brain and just the opposite for the other side. Here's the sphenoid bone once again. Okay, now, this is seen from the top. We just saw that. But the optic canal shows a little bit better. Lesser wing, greater wing. This is unlabeled. This is the rotundum. This is the ovale. This is the spinosum. I honestly don't know what they want me to label this as. Okay. The Selatursica, though, is here. This is a picture that goes with this. Now, this one, you're looking from the back of the head forward. Okay, here's the greater wing, the lesser wings up here. It's got 2 feet. They look like water troughs or chutes or playground slides. These are the pterygoid processes. Pterygoids pronounced without the P. Here they are, here and here. Okay, we've done a lot of this, but not all of it. I'll get rid of the part that we've done first. Here's the occipital bone, foramen magnum. Here's part of the parietal bone. You can barely see it in this cut because it's very thin. Here's the Selatursica, the foramen rotundum, ovale, spinosum. We did on Tuesday the internal acoustic meatus here. This is the jugular foramen here. You do not need to know the groove for the venous sinus. Going up farther, it's showing spongy bone being inside of the frontal bone. Here's the frontal bone. Yes, the frontal bone is formed from intermembranous ossification. Now, the ethmoid bone, a piece of it sticks straight up. You can't see it from looking at it at the top, but it's like the dorsal fin of a shark or some fish sticking up. That's called the crista galli. Then there are 2 flaring plates here and here. These are the cribriform plates. And then they have holes, as I told you, to allow gases to come up. The holes aren't named here. They are olfactory foramina. Foramina is the plural. I will not ask you them unless I'm able to show you a picture of it, go over it with you. So, but for now, it's nice to try to put a label to everything. Olfactory foramina on the cribriform plate. If you picture Swiss cheese, the cheese itself is the cribriform plate, the holes of the olfactory foramina. Okay, looking inside of the eye, straight in, you see a boomerang on each side. These slits are for the muscles to enter that control the movement of the eye. This upper portion is the smaller part. It's the superior orbital fissure. Below it, the inferior orbital fissure comes forward on both sides. You also have an optic canal. Doesn't show. We need to be a little bit more off to the side, maybe here. Okay, I think there is a picture of that coming up. Look in the nose. The upper part is separated into two chambers, two nasal cavities, separated by the perpendicular plate. This perpendicular plate is the bottom or underside of the ethmoid bone. That same ethmoid bone that had the crista galli, like a fin of a shark, as I mentioned, also has a stabilizer underneath it, like a boat might, and that's the perpendicular plate. Back here, this is running backwards to meet it. This is the vomer. The perpendicular plate, if you were looking into the nasal cavity, is at the top. Vomer at the bottom. We can see the vomer from the other side as well. We'll in just a second. Here's our maxilla. This is the alveolar process. The alveolar process is on the upper jaw and lower jaw. The upper jaw, the maxilla. Okay. Alveolar process holds the teeth. If you can feel in your own mouth the bumps as you go along the gum, where the teeth are, that means you're in the area of the alveolar process. Okay, here's that vomer again. Now this is at the back half of the nasal cavity. Here's the vomer. From this angle, which is the angle I like to ask from, this angle, the vomer is complete from top to bottom. Okay. That perpendicular plate is not going to make it all the way back here. Here's the palatine process. What does that mean? This is the palate. This is your hard palate. So this is a palatine process. One flat shelf coming this way, one flat shelf coming the other way. They're both part of the maxilla. They're both part of the maxilla to the roof of your mouth. Palatine process. There's a bone back here where it gets smooth. Some of you will actually be able to run your tongue back without gagging, I hope. And when you, just before you get to the soft part of the palate in the back, you'll feel the bone get smoother. It's the palatine bone. You're not going to be asked it that way. It's at the back here. Palatine bone always has these small little foramina. Palatine foramen here. Here's a palatine foramen here. This skull has a pair. Some have four. The mandible fits into this part, the mandibular fossa, which is at the posterior of the zygomatic arch. You can see here, if you've ever had TMJ, temporal mandibular joint syndrome, or if you've ever eaten a bunch of chewing gum at one time as a kid, or just been chewing too much, your jaw gets sore, okay? And that's because of the stress placed here on the mandibular fossa. This is the mandible. if you take your thumb and index finger and just go around your lower jaw in the front, you're touching the body. At the back, under your ear, where the mandible turns and changes direction, that's the angle. And then the flat part, where if you touch it, the flat part with right and left hands, you look like the Home Alone kid. This is the ramus. Plural would be rami, but there's only one ramus here. In the front of the body is a hole, the mental foramen. Dentists may look to shoot in Novocaine there if they're working on the front teeth, because that's where nerve ganglia tend to be. There's a mental foramen. Here's the alveolar process of the lower jaw. The mandibular foramen is on the back side here of the ramus. It's the counterpart to the mental foramen. Mental foramen, mandibular foramen, and the dentist may look for that. It's a good spot to numb you up if you have to do it. Coronoid process, that's this pointed structure. Behind it, the mandibular condyle fits into the mandibular fossa that we just looked at. The mandibular fossa, by the way, that we just looked at here, is on the temporal bone. The mandibular condyle is a rounded projection, fits into it. So now we have an oddball, this one in the front, that doesn't make a connection to anything. It's just the coronoid process. When it says coronoid, I try to think, why are they using the word heart? I don't know why they're using the word heart, but when I open my mouth, the coronoid process drops towards the heart. The mandibular condyle stays put. It pivots. If that helps you remember. The ossicles of the ear, you need to know them. They are the malleus, incus, and stapes. If you happen to have had this in high school biology, they may have called it the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. That doesn't look a lot like a hammer to me. A little bit if it had a longer handle, but you have to know it as malleus, not hammer, please. This could look like an anvil, but most people don't even know what an anvil is. Never seen one. Have you ever actually seen one? You haven't even seen a water bed. So why would you see an anvil? You see an anvil in Wile E. Coyote cartoons, Roadrunner cartoons. They always dropping one on the coyote's head. Okay, so we'll go by incus here. And the stapes, yes, it does indeed look like stirrups, but we call it stapes. These transmit vibrations from the outer, middle, and inner ear. Okay. And on the exam, one of them will be shown to you. All you have to do is say which one it is. Here's the orbit of the eye. I think you can ignore the number 2. I don't think I put that there. Here are the bones that make up the orbit of the eye. There are really 7 bones that fit together here. The frontal bone, and it goes underneath. So the top of your eye right now, touching the frontal bone. The sphenoid bone, which I showed you on the side, and I showed you from the top, also extends into the eye. This is the sphenoid bone. The zygomatic bone dips down into the eye. The maxilla down here with the infraorbital foramen here reaches over and makes up this part of the eye, the floor of the eye. The lacrimal bone is here. Here was the nasal bone. Here's maxilla, and here's the lacrimal. And then we got one more here, the ethmoid bone. That ethmoid bone really gets around. Starts at the crista galli upstairs, cribriform plate upstairs, perpendicular plate downstairs, and to the right and left sides, a small plate, nice and smooth, of bone that makes up the back medial eye. It's the ethmoid bone back here as well. Now, I told you there were 7. The 7th one, you'll never see a picture of it. You just got to hold the skull just exactly right. I've never seen it. It's the palatine bone. We saw the palatine bone a moment ago looking at the top of the mouth, but looking through at the orbit, the palatine bone is said to make a small contribution, but I can't see it. I can't show it. I've never found a book that would show it to me either. So it's just academic. It's just academic that the palatine makes up the orbit of the eye, because I'll never ask you that. I will ask you the other 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I don't think you can see this. Can you see my calendar?
No.
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 That's
Mm.
okay. It's. I'm looking at the first examination, and that's going to be practical 1. I don't set the dates for that. It's set by, well, this time it's set by Elizabeth Innans. She's been here a long time too, not that long. And it's in your syllabus. It's February 10th. Okay. We're supposed to be back in the classroom by the 7th. Well, that's a Monday. So it would be for us the 8th. We'd be back into the laboratory. Maybe a little bit later, we can make bets on whether or not you think we're going to make it there or not. Okay. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you are skeptical, at least, that we'll make it back? Skeptical means you're not going to bet on it. Yeah, I'm skeptical too. If we don't make it back, then your exam will be on the 10th of February, and it will be on Canvas. Okay. It will be the way I've been showing you. Be sure to do the practice quiz, by the way, this weekend. And but what if we do make it back? We'll be back on the 8th. They will set up a physical examination, not a digital exam, for you. How hard do you think, and then I'll tell you what I think, how hard do you think it will be to go from looking at pictures and diagrams, okay, to actually taking a test using real bones?
I personally think it would be a little bit hard, like switching from taking an online test the last like 2 years maybe, and then going to a paper test with only like a day or so in between.
It's not a paper test, exactly. It's the bone's right there on the table. You can pick it up. You can turn it around.
Okay.
And I'm not defending it. I'm just discussing right now. Okay. Well, it's something we need to think about between now and then. I did tell you to begin trying to write down these terms. Okay, write them out. That won't hurt you in any respect, even if we have to do an online test. I would like to use the physical test if we have it and you would be prepared. How are you going to get prepared? It's our first day back is on the 8th and the test is on the 10th. Well, you've been studying for it, okay? And on the 8th itself, we could use the discussion time on Tuesday. We can go from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock, those who want, those who feel they need, you know, and to sit there with all the bone boxes. We have tons of bone boxes and match them up with our pictures and such and handle them and things. We can devote the whole day to it. Those who don't need that much time, of course, I don't expect you to stay till 7 o'clock. Those who do want to stay till 7 o'clock, and there'll be people who want to stay to 7 o'clock, can. Okay. You're going to prepare anyway for a digital test. That's what you're studying right now. You're going to be prepared for a Canvas type test. We'll get in there on the 8th and I'll get a feeling from you after an hour or so of looking at the real bones. Oh, I can do this, or this will be impossible. Okay, or what you're thinking. Okay. Right now, I'm asking you to just begin realizing the situation we might face and having to make a decision. If we're in the classroom, I have to decide on the 10th if we're going to take it digitally. Well, where are we going to get all the computers for that? We're going to send you home and let you do it there, or what? You know, I don't mind. I don't know if I can pull that off. Okay. Any input is appreciated. Okay. And I wish there's some way for us to. Has anybody been over to the school recently?
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the school right now.
Okay.
So
Are
yeah.
you at the LRC?
Yeah, so I just got out of a science class, microbiology, and then I just come here because I don't have time to go home and like
Oh.
set up.
Okay. They have reference desk, or if they don't keep it there anymore, they'll tell you where. They have 7 bone boxes. 7 bone boxes over at the library that people can look at. And I would suggest if you can get over to the library, do it anyway. But there's no decision. I'm going to be fair. The thing I believe in probably more than anything else is we must have justice. Justice. That's a crazy word these days. I don't care which political party or group you're in. I have to feel that things are just. Okay. So you need to study the material and as you don't let it catch up on you. Example of me having to have justice. If I feel mistreated or if I feel somebody's done something wrong, I don't just get even. I got to get ahead. You know, you've heard of that. Okay. Well, I once was going home in my brand new Toyota truck pickup. Well, I've had 7, so it's not unusual that I have a Toyota pickup truck. I was driving through Majeska Canyon, where I lived, and I'm there, and it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking to myself, I want to go drive my truck at 2 o'clock in the morning, brand new. You know how it is. You get a new car, you want to get out there. Okay. So I got out. It's 8 miles to El Toro on a very, very windy little road in those days, long ago. And it was moonlit. So I turned off the lights and I just started, cruising around. I'm the only person there. It's 4 miles to the big bend in the road, and 4 miles after that is El Toro. So I decided I'll go to Alpha Beta, buy something. Alpha Beta stores were around in those days. I got to the bend. That's the only place there's a light, a street light, okay, or a road light. Because really, there are no cars, there are no people, there are no structures. It's all forest in those days. But I could see this car ahead of me, and it was lifted up onto a rock, keep the wheel off the ground. The wheel tire was gone. And I look at the thing and I go, oh my God, that car looks like it's from Arizona. I had this weird feeling about people from Arizona. And I've changed a bit since then, but I didn't particularly like people from Arizona. The only people in Arizona were either psychopaths or they wore polyester. And I got up to the car, and my God, the light hit the license plate, and it said the Grand Canyon State. It's from Arizona. I knew it. It looked like an Arizona car to me. I turn in the corner. This is where the bend in the road was. Okay. Amongst the trees and stuff, here are 2 guys with the tire and their thumbs out for a ride. But these were the 2 scariest looking guys you ever saw, or I ever saw anyway. You gonna stop at 2 o'clock in the morning and give these guys a ride? Hell, they'll give you the tire and take your truck. I thought, my brand new truck. I'm serious. They look like Brad Pitt in the movie California, if you ever saw that. If not, don't bother. It's a bad movie, but he looks scary. Okay. Would you have stopped?
Nope.
No? Anybody would stop? Depends. I'm not a martial artist or anything like that, so I'm not stopping. And then I thought, no, don't be a coward. Stop. Yes, go on. No, stop. Yes, go on. No, I'm having this debate instantly in my mind. It's going fast, back and forth. And finally, my stupid self decided to stop. I put on the brakes to stop, but I was already a little bit past them, and they had decided I wasn't going to stop, and they had their hands with, the thumb up, but they were holding rocks, and they flung the rocks at me. So give us a ride, or we'll stone you, or worse. Now, should I have stopped and done something about that? Would you have gotten out of your car and done something about that?
No.
I would have drove on, to be honest.
I kept going, but I felt like a coward. I felt so bad. This is not justice. Justice has to be done somehow. And I was thinking, there's no way I can get justice out of this. I'm going to have to live with this the rest of my life. Oh, I'm so pissed off. Sorry about that. And I end up at the Alpha Beta store, and I'm leaving. going back the way I came, and across the street, here are the two guys. Somebody gave them a ride and lived. Somebody probably with a very old truck or something, you know. And they saw me, and creepy guys. They gave me the one finger salute. I did the same, not fulfilling it all. Kept on going, feeling like again a coward. What had happened? I got 4 miles down the road to the bend in the road. There's the car. There's that old Arizona junker up on the rock. And suddenly I decided to stop again. And I got out and I let the air out of all the rest of their tires. So, and I, okay. If you've got any questions, you've got outlines that you can do, you've got stuff to study. You don't need to go ahead. But if you've got any other questions, hang around as everybody else exits and you can ask me in a smaller group. Okay, I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a question about the YouTube. Are there, so there's videos of like the actual physical bones on there, or?
Yeah, you know, I did one of those myself, and there are other ones. I'll get you one from one of our instructors. The one I did, I was trying for my first time to hold it up to the camera. You know, right is left, left is right, and up is down, and I was making a mess of it. I got better. Okay, so give me an email. Okay, a reminder that you want a YouTube on bones.
Okay, because I just feel that if we have that to look at and then we end up having to go in person, it really wouldn't be different, in my opinion. Than looking at it, you know, digitally, it wouldn't make it harder. I think because I took bio a while back with Professor Tay and we made videos on YouTube and then ended up going in person, and it made it a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not trying to influence you or me even for that matter, one way or the other on this. I just want us to have it in our mind to begin to get prepared, what we might have to do. I don't for a second actually think that you would have any trouble adapting even with only 5 hours available to you on the 8th to the bones. I mean, it's a picture, but it's in 3D now. I don't think you would have any difficulty. But like I said, I got to be fair. Okay, so yeah, let me send you. I'll send everybody the link. But remind me, please. Okay, I got a lot going. I got so many emails from you guys on Tuesday night. It was crazy. Okay. Okay, so right now, you can either leave, wait to ask questions, or sit there hoping somebody asks a question, and it might be of interest to you. Whatever you'd like to do.
I had a quick question, Professor, or Charlie. Do you find that people struggle more with the laboratory exams or the lecture exams?
Lecture exam. Always the lecture exam. Every class, always the lecture exam. And the lecture exam is just like the practice test. So do that practice test to get you know, it's only 20 questions. It says it's worth 20 points. It's worth no points. Practice is practice. But people always do better on the practical exams.
Well, thank you.
It's a good question.
Andrew, I don't know if you're trying to ask a question, but your microphone was muted.
Oh, that's okay. Now I see it. Are we all outlining microscopic and other branches? I think I missed
No.
a couple. No? Okay.
I have a question about the meet and greet discussion.
Yes.
Do you want us to do it both for bio 11 and the bio 110? Like this, just copy and
No,
paste the
No,
discussion?
it would, I don't think I put it in the 110 yet, okay? Because, well, we don't need to do it both. You know,
Okay,
You're the same person.
Just
Either
check.
place. Okay.
thank you.
So how long should the outlines like ideally be? Like what's too long for you? Like how many pages is too long?
2 or 3 pages.
Okay, so just simple.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, if you make it difficult or more difficult than the book is, you're defeating the purpose of the outline to me.
Right.
I want you to put down what you think. Oh, that's important. He's going to ask that on the test. Okay. You can try to outfox me if you want to, and you'll probably win. Okay.
So in your story, was the person that was, so they were pulled over because they had a flat tire already?
They already had a flat
Up in the
tire,
rock? Oh, okay.
and they had lifted. I don't know why they did bother. They took the tire because they had no spare, or so they were strong enough to lift the front end onto a rock or to roll a rock under it. I never figured that out. You know.
Hmm.
I just wish I could have been there when they got back with their newly fixed tire.
To see the reactions when all of their tires were flat.
Yeah. If I'd have been a mean guy, I could have sliced them, you know. But no need to do that, you know.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye bye, Kareem.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye bye
Bye.
bye, Andrew.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bye bye.